Morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Today, what we will be looking at is workflow and workbox. I will be your panelist today. My name is Anna, and Helen will be hosting the webinar. In terms of the topics that we'll be covering, it's just going through how you can view workflows, how you can run any workflows immediately or queue them up to run on future dates, looking at the display of the workbox, the selection pane within the workbox, how you can reallocate workflows to other team members, and also the command level workbox and the features within there. As with all other webinar sessions, there is a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring any questions that come through in there, and I'll answer those as and when I can. If there's anything that I can't answer or where we've got people asking the same kind of questions, I'll answer those at the very end of the session. But without further ado, I'll pass you over to Helen.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Good afternoon. I will just get the system up and running, and we should now have access to our Liberate. So hopefully you can all now see the Liberate screen. So like Anna's just run through there, we're going to go through some general functionality around the workflow and the workbox area in Liberate. So I'm at command level here, and I'm going to start by locating my case, and we'll have a look in the case area first. So I'm going to click here into the red globe. I've got a case here that I've been working on previously, so I've just pinned that in as an easy access into the case as usual, and it's going to load us into the case itself. So looking at the case, it's loaded me up here into John Jones. At the top, it tells me where I am. It's the sale of 98 Main Street. Then as I start to flick through some of the tabs in the case, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the pages running against your cases at the top here, you'll notice on some of your screens, as there is mine, you may have workflows that have been created in the background by your design team, and you can run workflows off from the pages against the case type that you're looking in. It's a simple click and it will start to run the process, and boxes will appear on your screen, etc. Another one there, start of sale transaction. I could just click there and it will start to pull some prompts onto the screen, and I will be completing some information as I go. But the area where we're going to be looking in is the workflow icon here at the top. So it's the workflow icon. Works together really with the workbox. These two kind of work hand in hand. The workflow is where you can go and run your workflows and set some filters to queue things up. And then you'll view any outstanding action dates in the workbox. So click here into the workflow, into the cog, against the case. Because we're at the blue globe here in the case itself, you can look at the workbox as well from command, which we'll do towards the end of the session. So when we first open in here into the workflow, looking at the page, you can see you've got this filter options panel here just running down the left-hand side. You can pin this in and out of the page. So if I just click on the pin, the usual functionality in Liberate, I can drag away and squash that filter options pane up. I want that to be in place today because I'm going to show you what's in there. But if you just want to see the full view of your workflows in this center panel, just put your filter option away. But I'm going to dock that back in using the pin. Tick box at the top, then let's see what we've got in here. Show auto filter row. We've got the white banner here running across the top, usual functionality in Liberate, nice and easy, so I can search for the description using the filter in the auto filter row. We'll come back to that when we start to look for some workflows in a moment. Include options, so admin workflow, this is something that the administrators will be familiar with when they're setting up some processes or workflows in the background from the design side. They can set workflows with a code of a Z, and that's just showing you some, it's hiding them away here from this screen, but it's just some workflows that could be set as administration workflows, which will be running in the background without the front end user being aware at all. You might add some data into a data item, for example, and it will automatically do something in the background, unbeknown to yourselves, perhaps. I've not got anything in here. If I tick the box, you can see there's nothing changing in my list. I don't have any admin workflows set in this particular case, but that's what the admin is. Non-transaction, it's ticked here by default. So it's just showing me all workflows available for the case. You also underneath there, you can see you've got the transaction tick box. If I was to to tick the transaction and remove the non-transaction. I don't have anything here on the screen. I don't have any transaction workflows, but if you did, and you can see all those available against the case using the tick. Pull everything back onto my screen, and then the show sequence column. If I place a tick in here, you'll notice that this sequence column here at the right hand side has appeared. And if I scroll down, it's all set with letters. And it's just the order of sequence to run things in. So it's how some workflows may need to go in a particular order or a particular sequence. They will be set with a code, again, by the design team. And so everything's running in the correct order. So nice, simple functionality there in the filter options. The workflow queue date that we have here. I'm going to come back to that in a second when we've had a look at the columns, and I'll show you how you can queue a workflow up so it can be run a bit later on from your workbox. So let's have a look here at the center section where we've got the columns. We've got the run queue code and description columns here at the top. Run, you'll see this little green circle with the play button in, and it pops up onto the screen when you have your mouse telling you that the workflow will run when you click that button. It's going to run immediately. So I can run any of these workflows off from there. The queue button that we see here and the little icon, that ties in with the queue date, and we will come back and set this up shortly. The code column that you see in with all the codes in, again, going back to the administrators that you have of your systems and the design team, they will set these workflows up and they will put a code in the back end of the system. So everything's coded, has its own unique code, so it can start to merge things and run things in the right place from the front end. So it's easy to see the code. It doesn't mean that much to the front end user, but just so you know what it is. And then we've got the description. So you can see on my training system, I've got many, many workflows in here. You might just have a handful on your systems, but if you do have a lot, the auto filter that we've ticked here just allows you to search for things. So if I was to start to search here for a workflow that's labeled or starts with initial, I can see now it's brought back 5 onto the system. I can see initial letter to buyers, initial letter to estate agents, etc. So it's just making it nice and easy to search for things in the description because I've got the auto filter row checked there. If I want to run any workflows, going back to this queue then, maybe I want to run, let's search again. I'm just going to put that initial one back in. Let's locate that one again. Initial letter to estate agent. So I want this to run a little bit later on, maybe in the week. So I'm going to come to the workflow queue date. If you want to set something to run, pop the calendar up into view there. Let's say I want this to run on Monday the 16th. The date's sat nicely there in the queue box. And you just need to highlight this little icon against the workflow you want to run on the 16th. So I'm just going to check the box there. It spins around a bit there, just loading the information up, and then says workflow created for the 16th of August. So that's fine, that's okay. And what that will do is pop into the workbox and allow me to run it off from the workbox on the 16th of August or before if I need to do. And we'll move on to the workbox shortly. Before we go into the workbox area, there's a couple more bits of information that you may find useful here from the workflow side. All the workflows are listed, but you may want to know sometimes what they do, where they go, where they lead to, etc. You can just do a right click over any of the workflows that you need to look at. Do the right click and you'll get this little window that says workflow diagram and workflow properties. So if you need to know some more information before you run anything, click on workflow diagram, for example. Now this might mean a little bit more to your designers rather than the front end user, but it will just show a diagram here of the functionality and the process and where it's going to lead to. So false and true, if something is inputted, maybe it's going to check a data item, and if the data item or if something is false, it's going to run down this line. If it's true, it's going to run down this line. And you can scroll down, see the full set of instructions that's been created. You've also got in the right-hand panel, it tells you the lines of each of the workflow sections and the action type. So again, more of a design thing, but just so you can see how they're put together, it will tell you where the workflow is going to go. This one's going to post a precedent, so it's going to post a document for the buyer's solicitors. That's the initial letter, and then the workflow is going to stop but it's going to do a check first before it posts the letter. So it's just general information of how it's put together. If you wanted to print this off, you can print the screen off as well. We've got fit to screen, fit to A4, fit to A3, and you can zoom in there or zoom out 100%, and you can also move things about. But if you want to print anything off, you've just got the tabs here in the top left corner, and you can click on File. You can print the preview, you can export it, or you can exit out of there. And you've got the layout as well of how it's laid out on the screen. So there's a couple of things just to guide you around there from the right-click options. We look there at the diagram. If you go into the properties, you're looking pretty much at the information that we could see before down that right-hand panel. So it's just, again, the flow of the workflow. It's the way the lines have been created and what's going to happen on each section of the each part of the process. So like we've said, this initial letter to buyers, it's going to do a check, and then it's going to post a document, and then it's going to stop. Okay. Before we go on to the workbox and we see what's in there, I'm going to just run a couple of workflows off. Now, the top one here, it says ad hoc workbox entry. So this can be quite useful if you want to set yourself some tasks, and it's a good way of me getting something into the workbox to show you guys how it's all put together. Again, I could have used the filter in the description there just to search for the ad hoc workbox entry workflow, but it was right at the top of the screen. So here it is. I can run this workflow using the green play button here, which I'm going to do. Click on the button, and the process starts to work. This process starts, and it's going to ask you for some information. So this is an ad hoc one where you can tell it what the action that you want it to do later down the line. So it gives you a nice tooltip at the bottom. Please enter the details for the workbox entry. So chases aside for response, for example. And this is going to be displayed in the workbox area. So it's giving you that tooltip of what you need to do when you see it later on. I'll just pop in there, chase to the side, and I'll just put webinar, and I'll click OK. The next box that you're going to see here is when do you want this to happen? It's the job review date of next action. So it's populated here for today's date, but again in the tooltip, please enter the date you wish for the entry to be chased, and it must be a date in the future. I'll just pop tomorrow's date in there, and I'm going to click OK. And that's a simple ad hoc workflow run out of the workbox there, out of the workflow area here, sorry, into the workbox. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to run this workflow again, actually, because I'm just, I can get some things across into the workbox so we can see how it's all put together. I'm just going to pop in there, webinar example. Same thing, it's just going to pop a date in, but this time I'm just going to add a date a little bit further on. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a few moments when we look in the workbox, but I'm just going to click OK. So that's a typical ad hoc workbox entry run out there from the workflow area. We mentioned the initial letter to buyers before as well. I'm just going to go back into this one. I'm just going to run this workflow just so you can, again, get an idea of the things that might happen during a workflow. This one we know is going to send a document. Buyer's workflow is being run. If any documents are produced or precedents, what it does through the workflow is take you straight into the document queue. So it's produced the buyer's solicitor's letter here by running the workflow, and I could make some edits to the document and just follow the usual process there in the precedents area. But I'm just going to clear that queue down. I just wanted to show you how it might appear on your screen if you have any documentation running off the back of a workflow. Okay, so from the workflow area, because we've run a couple of workflows in here now, you might have noticed that some of them do have this little plus tree expansion little box here, little tiny icon. That's a good kind of audit trail really sometimes of the workflows that you've run out of this area. So if I click and highlight it, it's going to show you the actions that have happened against that particular workflow. It's going to show you the user, the time it happened, excuse me, and the dates. And you can see in here, this one's been used many times. And I can scroll down, I can see all the entries. And I can see there the 12th of August, today, what we've run out of the workflow area. Right. I'm going to just close that up and I'm going to take you now into the workbox area. So we've mentioned there that the workflow and workbox kind of run hand in hand a little bit. The workflow is where we can set the process running, excuse me, and I'm going to go into the workbox. Okay, right. I've opened into the workbox and I can see here on the 8th of August, in this center area here, I can see that something happened and it's now out of date because it has a red ring around it. And it was the ad hoc workbox that was run. And before we come into this center area here to see what we've just, the things that we've just sent the workflows and the actions for aren't appearing as yet because I need to first of all refresh the page in this top level here where the filters are. If I click on refresh, I can also see, okay, nothing else is showing. That's because in this top area, we have a little checkbox that says show future. And I haven't yet ticked the box. So once I tick the box, it's going to show those future entries, the ones that I've just been preparing. And now when I click refresh, you'll notice the view changes in the bottom section here. This is one I did a few days ago. It's outstanding. It's got the red ring around it. We've then got the ad hoc workbox entry, which I set for the 13th, and I put chase to the side webinar. So you can see the information in the status area is showing through. That's got the green ring around it because it's highlighting to me it's the next 7 days. As is the 16th of August, the initial letter to buyers. This is the one that we queued up. We queued it up for the 16th and it's got the green ring around it. So I need to action this on the 16th and the color code is saying it's within the next 7 days. I also set the ad hoc workbox again and the workflow that ran for the 26th of August. And the reason I did that was just so you could see that this doesn't have any color coding around it. And that's because it's outside of 7 days. It's not come into that. It's within 7 days that you need to action it yet. So it's just, it's not yet classed as urgent. Before we look at these in a little bit more detail, let's just come back up to this workbox selection at the top here. So this is your filter area here at the top. We've got the date from and the date to. So the date from, I'm here going back to whenever, and it's showing me 9999. But that's because I've got the show future tick box selected here. If I untick that show future, I could refresh and it's going to take me back to that initial entry because there's nothing now showing for future. But it allows me to tweak the dates up in the top left corner so I can just click into the arrow and I could set some dates. I just want to see workflow entries between and I can set the dates accordingly. So that's your first useful filter area there. Include inactive. If you've got any inactive workflows that are no longer live, but you want to see what's happened in the status of inactive, you can just tick the box and it will show anything through onto the screen that's now inactive. Show non-transaction was the default, again, that's ticked by default. I don't have any transaction workflows, but if I did have, I could check the box and it's going to pull anything onto the screen where it's been a transaction workflow pulling into the workbox area. So I think the workbox area itself, you kind of have to see as an action list, really, as an outstanding list of tasks. It's something, an area for you to come in and check, look at any outstanding dates. Then you can run the workflows off here from the workbox area and get your tasks up to date or make sure you're on top of your action list. So I'm going to just check that show future and refresh again. Now, if anybody is interested in just having the show future tick box ticked by default as soon as you open this area, you can do that from your user settings as well. So if you just prefer to have that ticked all the time and always have the future on show, you can do that. I'll show you at the end of the session where that little checkbox is. I prefer just to tick as I go, so that's why I've kept mine separate, so I can just tick and show the future as I need. So let's have a look in this bottom area here then, what we can see. Case code, we've got these columns. Case code, action date, we've mentioned the colours, and I'll come back to the colours in a second. The status, so what's happening, what do we need to do, what needs actioning. The case owner is me. I'm logged in here today as DEM, D-E-M, and that's my login credentials as the case owner. The workflow owner again, Aileen Marsden, that's me, how I'm logged in today. And then we've just got the little workflow active, the live, it's a live workflow. That's what the little green tick means there at the end. Now here at Linetime, our colours have been coded up on the system. So red will always mean outstanding. Green will be within the next 7 days. I'm going to change one of these to today's date in a second, and that will be blue, because blue is going to tell us that it's happening today. And then anything with outside of 7 days and beyond won't have the ring around it. Now you can, again, design teams can set these colours if they prefer to have different colours showing in this area. You can do that from your admin settings as well. Your administrators will be able to. So if anybody's looking at different colours, it's because they've been set that way, basically. So to change anything up on this screen, I've got this top one here, 8th of August. It doesn't matter which one I select. I can just select using the tick box here at the side if I want to do. But I can do a right click, and you've got what we call the right click options here in the workbox area. Now I'm currently looking at case level. I'm at the case itself. So the top one for load case, I don't really need to load up the case because I'm already in it. That's a little bit more effective when you're looking at the command level workbox, which we'll get to in a second or two. So I'm not going to load the case, but that's what it is. That's what it's going to do. Run workflow is going to run the workflow that you've selected and run it out of the workbox, so to speak, because it's saying that you've actioned it and you've done it. So it's going to run it off. We've got workflow components. If I check in that box there, you can see it's going to pull the components that we've seen from the workflow area. You know, when we did the right click in the workflow itself and we saw the properties, so you're looking at the same thing in here as well. So you can see what's been happening or what's due to happen in the workflow and what's going to happen next. We've got filters. So I'll look at the filters and you can see a little window pops up to say filter editor. So we've got the and the plus option here. So we can do an and an or using the plus if we wanted to do. Client begins with, maybe you want to just cross that one off. Do you want maybe case status? Maybe the case status is equal to or is less than. You can kind of get the picture in here. It's the general filters that you see on most of your systems, probably that you use. But maybe the case status equals to, and then you need to enter the value of what it equals to. So the case status, let's put maybe something in there like matter. You can just type in what you need in there. And it's going to try and find something. So all mine have got matter in there, so it's not going to find anything any different. So that was probably a poor choice. But you kind of get the picture there of how you can build up your filter. So you can, my list's really short and it's really easy to see, but potentially you could have, 20, 30 items and more in here. So you would probably want to use your filters, filter something out, something a little bit more meaningful. Let's see if we can think of something else. I'm going to cancel out of there. We'll just cancel that one off. But yeah, see if you can, I could probably filter on initial, for example, and then it would pull back initial letter. Perhaps I should have done initial, but you kind of get the picture. So I'm just going to OK out the filter option there. You've got the same tab actually as well, if just to mention, you've got the tab here as well, and show auto filter. We've got the auto filter, and if I click into the filters there, it pulls the same window onto the screen. And you can apply any filters and do it that way. Right, let's move down the list then. Group by box. The group by box, you can group things together. Again, my list is very short and very neat and easy to read, but where you've got drag a column header here to group by that column, maybe it's, let's say action date. You could drop the action date there into the column and you can see the view's now changed. And it's personal choice. There's no right or wrong way of doing this particularly. It's just if you want to have a different view and you've got many workbox entries in different dates, you can just open them up and it's a different way of seeing what you've got in there. Look, so it's a different way of viewing, different way of opening up the detail, and you might prefer to see it by date or whichever one you've added in here into the action, into the group box. So if you want to clear the grouping off, I can just click clear grouping and it takes me back and takes that little setting off that we've just given it there. That's what the group box does. Expand all and collapse all will expand any of the tree structures that you have, the little plus symbols, it's going to expand them out and collapse them. Select all, it's going to select all your items. So I've checked there, select all, and it's going to select everything. And maybe I want to delete everything off at the same time or something like that. So it can be quite useful. Deselect all obviously does the opposite. Delete current row. If I want to take something out of the workbox, remove something completely, I can delete the row. Maybe it's been added in error, or it's not been, it's never going to be complete, whichever. I don't want to use it anymore. I can just do the right click and I can delete the row, or I can delete more than one by deleting rows, and that would just be highlighting more than one. I'm not going to delete anything out, otherwise I'd have nothing left to show you. So, but that can be done. And then finally here we've got the properties. So if I go into properties, we'll use this top one again as the example. And if I go into properties, pops this window into view. So this is where you can change anything up on your screen. At the top, you can't amend anything in here where it's all greyed out or yellowed out in that yellow color. That's just giving you the full details of the case and the client that you're looking at. You can see that it's an ad hoc workbox entry. It says quite clearly there at the top, and it's active with the radio button here. The next workflow line. So this is going to tell you what's going to happen next, basically. And you can move this on or click into the little drop down arrow, and you can see I've just got 3 lines. It's telling me that the next thing it's going to do is suspend, but you can change that if needed to move it forward or move it back a step. The next action date, 8th of August, we've got that here. Maybe I want to change that action date. I probably might want to do that, or somebody might want to do that today. The critical one I will come back to, but I'm just changing the action date for now. And this, the workflow status, chase client for return of SDLT form, that's what you see in the entry, in the status there for the workflow. And any workflow notes you would see in these lines here if they've been added. So I'm just going to click OK. Now, you may have noticed, those of you that are tuned into the colours there, you'll see that the colours changed to blue from red. So it's just as simple as that to change something up, change the day. I can now see it at a glance that it's gone blue. So that's something I need to do today. It's as simple as that, really. If you want to move back into your properties, I'm just going to take this other workflow here where we've got the chase of the side. I've just gone into the workflow, same sort of thing, but this time I'm just going to use this critical box that I just mentioned. So we can see that we've got the chase of the side webinar. That's what I added. I could add something else, and I can add some more notes on there if I wanted, but I'm going to say that this is a critical date. It's something that has to happen as a matter of importance. So I've checked the box for critical, and you can see that that now has a purple ring around it. Again, that's a Linetime colour that we've chosen for critical. Not everybody may have access to that critical tick box, and I will show you again at the end where that can be set up by the, well, for the administrators among you or the design teams. I'll show you how you can access that and set your users to be able to have the critical box. So that's just a bit of extra functionality there if required. You say you may not want to use that, but it's an option for you. Okay, so that's the right click options we've looked at in here. The other thing I want to show you from the case is this little panel that we're seeing down the right-hand side. Now, this is for if you want to reallocate maybe some work to another user. You might want to just see somebody else's workbox. So you want to have a look and see what somebody else has got on. So in this Teams area, or in this, I'll just expand it out. You can just drag this a little bit bigger as well, so you can see things a little bit clearer. If I scroll down in here, you can see I've just got a list of all our employees or pretend ones on our training system, but you will have a list of everybody in your company down here. So if I was to say Tom Trainer, if I click on Tom Trainer, I've got 2 little icons at the bottom, one that says reallocate, one that says view workbox. So I can reallocate a workflow if I'd selected one, or maybe I just want to view his workbox. So I can just now check that box. Actually, he doesn't have anything. Tom Trainer has nothing and no work to do. So maybe I want to reallocate something to him. He's not got much going on. So if I come back into my workbox of Aileen, this critical one here, I can highlight, I can select. I'll just take that tick away again, actually, because until you tick the box, you'll notice the reallocate is grayed out. I can't do anything with that at the minute. So until you tick it, then it comes to life. So now I can see I can reallocate one of my workbox and one of my actions, one of my entries. And I'm going to allocate that to Tom Trainer. So I'm going to highlight him from the list, and I'm just simply going to reallocate. And what you have on the screen there is this workflow transfer window. I can just confirm the transfer or I can cancel, but before I do that, just do your sanity checks underneath here. The new owner is Tom. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Do I want to send him a notification via email? And what he will receive is an email. If that was checked and you're all set up with Outlook, he'll receive an email, and the email will have this detail attached to it that you're seeing underneath here. It will tell him the case, the client, the code, and the description, etc. Just exactly as you see will be attached onto his email. I'm not going to attach anything this time, but what I am going to do, I'm not going to send him the notification, but I'm happy to confirm the transfer over to Tom Trainer. So confirm the transfer, exports that across, and you can see he's now gone from my list. So he's had something reallocated. So when he comes in the morning, he can go into his workbox area and he can have a look. Tom Trainer's selected. I've gone into view workbox, and there's his entry. So he's now got something to do when he comes in tomorrow or later today, whenever. So that's how the reallocate and the view workbox button will work. You can obviously transfer that back. I can now go back into Aileen and look at her workbox. Maybe I want to transfer something else to somebody else. That's fine. Just do exactly the same process. Highlight, choose who it is, and reallocate. Okay, so I am gonna, from here, just whiz us across into the command level workbox. Oh, actually, one thing before we do that, I've mentioned about running the workflows off from this area. So if I've got something in the box here, notice these two buttons up at the top in the workbox. We've got run workflow and refresh. Refresh is simply going to refresh the page. That's going to pull anything back into view. If you've been playing about somewhere else, it will pull and update anything in the center panel here. But the run workflow will just run the workflow that you're selecting from here. So for this one, for the 12th of August, I can check that workflow and I can run the workflow from here. So it's going to run that out of the workbox. So the workflow has been run. It's saying that I've done the action. I've completed that task. That's okay. So you can see my list now. My action list in here has now been reduced. I've only got 2 left in the workbox area. So I just wanted to show you that before we nip onto our command level. So here in command level, I've just gone back into the red globe. Remember, F8 on your keyboard is a shortcut, which will take you straight back into command as well. So we also have the icon here for the workbox up here in the top. But remember, workbox at command level is looking at all the workbox entries, so all the actions that are outstanding for all the cases that you want to filter on here in this top section. We've just come from the blue globe, so I was just looking at the entries against that one particular case. So the command level could be a really useful area when you folks come in on a morning. If you're using the workflow and workbox, it could be a good area to go and do your checks to see what's outstanding for all your cases. So you would want to use the filter section at the top to drill into the area that you want to be. Again, we've got the date from and date to. We've seen these on the case, there's nothing different there. You can move the dates accordingly, or you've also got the show future checkbox. So that's going to show anything in the future. If I now click on the refresh button, it will refresh the full screen. So you can see the screen's changed here at the bottom. It's now viewing 1 or 2 more entries than what we originally had there because I've checked the show future box. We've got the owner type, case and workflow. So the owner type here, I can see all the workflows for me attached to the case. I am the case owner here, or workflow owner, and we've also got the workflow radio button as well, which will be just all the workflows. So owner Aileen Marsden, that's myself. So I'm going to view everything for me. But remember, you've got the little drop down arrows here. Use the box, expand them out, or use the binoculars to search for who you want to search for. We'd probably move the binoculars onto the name, so you can just start to type the name of somebody and search for somebody else, and general functionality of Liberate. Case type, maybe you want to drill into a particular case type. Again, you've got the binoculars. You can move these across and start to search for something. I just typed in there res for residential sale, and you can see it's taken me down to residential lead plot sale. But you can just search accordingly, use the filters to drill into the case type you need. I've just checked there residential sale. If I click refresh, again, it's now pulled back 3 entries that I had before for John Jones, because I knew that that was a residential sale case type. So it's just filtered me in, brought me back to those 3 against the case type that we looked in. But if you want to set that to all, you can just check the little green tick and it's going to pull that back to all. And with a refresh, it pulls everything back for everything onto the screen. Maybe you want to look for a particular fee earner. Simple filter options, just check the drop down arrow and choose accordingly from the fee earners that are listed there against your company. Case status and workflow status, drop down arrows again. If you're using these, you can select the case status, maybe just want to see everything that's at file reviewed status, maybe new instruction, etc., etc. You can choose what you need. We've got the same 2, show inactive and show excluded. If you needed to select those to reduce the list or to filter in a little bit further. Refresh and the same run workflow button here. So the functionality is pretty much the same from command level. It's just that you have a whole lot more filters because we're looking at all cases. So you can just filter in and drill in and get to where you need to be. But you can still run things off here from the workflow box. You can check the workflow or the entry, the workbox entry, tick the box, and you can run that off using the run workflow at the top. So the one that was critical, I've now run off, I've actioned it, and it's done, and it's been taken away from my view. Again, the Teams panel, looking down here, no different there. So I don't need to show that again, perhaps, but you can see that it's the same thing. You've got the Reallocate and the View Workbox, both grayed out at the bottom until you actually select somebody from the list, and then they both come to life. So you can either reallocate or you can view their workbox. So while we're here at the command level, I'm just going to go into the red globe at the top left. And I'm going to go into the options because I want to just show you where that show future tick box is. If you want to set that so it's always ticked, into the red globe, into the options. And you have in the user options setting down here, some of you will not see admin options, but you will see users, all of you no doubt. And if you go into workflow, there's a tiny checkbox there that says default case workbox to show future entries, and that's the one. If you tick that, it's always going to be ticked for you. But like I say, it could have its disadvantages or advantages. It depends how you work. I prefer to just tick it as I need, so the dates are always pulling in accordingly for what I need to view. So that's just cancel out of there. The critical option that we mentioned, now this is for those designers out there, if you need to use this, I'm just going to whiz into the admin section here of Liberate. So the front-end users, you probably will never see this, but I'm going to go into the maintenance and into the user setup. This is the administration where I'm looking now. So like I say, some of you won't have access to this, but it's just useful to know that for those that do. I am called Aileen Marsden on this system. So I'm just going to double click and open into her user record. Just does take a second or two sometimes to load up into here. And the place you need to go is the user SE options here. And when I go into the SE option, you can see it tells you where you are here in the top left, SE options with all these tick boxes, but the one I'm going to show you is in the bottom left here down the left-hand panel, and it says allow ad hoc critical reminders in Workbox, and mine's set to Y, and that's why me as Aileen Marsden has that little tick box available. That's why I'm able to do a right click and go into properties and have the critical tick box here in sight and in view for me to select. So that's done from your SE user options in admin. And I think I am pretty much covered there. for your workflow and workbox. So hopefully that's made a little bit of sense and explained a few things that you can see on your screen. I'm going to hand you back to Anna, and hopefully she has been answering any questions that you may have. Anna, over to you.
Hi, Helen. We haven't got any open questions from anybody. We just had just a couple come through as you was talking about it, so I've dealt with those, but there's nothing else that I can see coming through. The webinar, as you're probably aware, is being recorded, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Helen, it is available to view from our website in due course. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, it will be available. The information or the recording will be sent over for our guys to get onto our website in the next probably 24 hours or so. So hopefully by tomorrow you should be able to go onto the website and pull the recording off. For anyone that wants to watch it again, probably not, but you might want to send it on to a few colleagues and let them have a look and learn a few bits about the workflow.
And as always, have a look on our website for any future webinars that might be coming your way. So feel free to join any of those. But I think we'll probably leave it there. There's no questions. I can see some people are dropping off. So thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone. See you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.